to the Ward's Way Podcast.
Well, welcome everybody to the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show and the Ward's Way Podcast. We're here on the final day of the 65th annual boat show, and I'm here with my very dear friend, Patience Cohn with the Marine Industries Association of South Florida, who, by the way, owns the show, just to make sure that everybody that's listening knows that. So, welcome. Thank you for being here. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, you and I have known each other for many years, but I'd really like to highlight all that you have done for the association with legislative initiatives and efforts, because so much of that it's a thankless job at times, and so many things, people just expect things to happen. So talk to me about that. But first, how did you get into the industry?
Well, I was born on Nantucket.
Okay.
And I grew up in the summers working at the boat basin. I was a dock girl at the boat basin in Nantucket. And at the end, after I graduated from college, I decided I'll do one more year, one more summer on the docks. And my cousin was taking a 42-foot post from Nantucket to Fort Lauderdale, and he said, "Do you want to help me do the delivery?" I said, "Sure, I'll get a job when I get back." So we pull into Pier 66, and Ronnie Stroud, who was the original dock master at Pier 66, pulls up, and he's tying us up, and he says, "You look familiar, don't I know you?" And I said, "Yes, you were in Nantucket. You were on a boat that said, 'Follow me to Fort Lauderdale.' Here I am." And he says, "Do you want a job?" And I said, "Sure." And
So before you ever stepped off the boat, you already had a job.
Right.
That's awesome. And what was the job?
I was originally the beverage girl in the bait out at the fuel dock with the bait cooler and because they'd all stop and pick up their bait and beer and ice before they went fishing. And then they gave me dock girl duties where I'd tie up the boats. And on the 2 days that the office manager was out of the office, then I would answer the phone and work in the office.
And how long were you there for?
5 years.
Okay. Wow. And then from there, what'd you get?
I started dating Captain Craig Tafoya, and that's right.
Boy, I forgot some of these chapters. Man, that's right. And so then you went all over the world.
Eventually,
and you were a chef.
Yes.
That's how you got into being a chef. That's right.
Yes. We were on a boat that came with a chef, and just about most of the crew thought that it wasn't working. And one day I went to the captain and said, I can do better than this. I don't think I'm great, but I'm better
But I can do better than this.
And that's how I ended up in that position.
Wow, that's awesome. And then fast forward, I think you and I met. You were actually... is that when you were, it's hard on the timeline. So when did you go to South Carolina and run the marina there?
We met before that.
Yes.
Because I was on the board.
You were on the board before that?
Yes,
okay.
and then I left the board because we went to South Carolina.
That's what it was. Okay. So we served on the board together.
Right. And you were president actually when I left.
Okay. Is that why you left?
Yeah.
Okay. Done with her. Was that president during Wilma? Was that oh my gosh. Yeah,
yes.
I would have left too. No, so for the background of that Wilma was a storm that came through, which is actually a really good segue into the association and its impact for the show. So Hurricane Wilma comes, the boat show is already set up. It's late in the season. The tents are up. Some people's exhibits are in. There's boats that are in, and here comes the storm, kind of out of nowhere, but it's going to hit the West Coast. It's going to be a tropical storm. It's going to be weight 01, and it ended up coming through basically as a 2, but came all the way through here. And I know the association had to make a really important decision to either cancel the show or do the show. And I'd been president for a whole 90 days at this point, and I remember it was definitely the show has to go on, because it wasn't about people tried to make it about the rich boat owner, but it's about the economic impact of the show and the amount of jobs and the boat washers and all the people that, every one of these booths is a small business. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I just want to make sure that people understand that. And so it was so important. The city was behind it. The industry was behind it. You always have naysayers, but I still think to this day it was the right thing to do the show.
And everyone, this general citizenship didn't want us using resources.
Correct.
It was the boat show that was taking the sand off of A1A and
Yes.
putting it back on the beach so
Yes,
that
it
people
was.
could get to them.
Yes.
And the other thing that was, the power outages were incredible, and most of these businesses were shut down. And having them shut down, their people weren't getting paid. They weren't going to
Right.
work.
100%.
But by having to put the booth together and have to build a show and have to man the booth and all that stuff they were getting paychecks that they wouldn't have gotten because they weren't operating in their main businesses. My house was out for 16 days.
Right.
So without the show, all those people would have been more devastated than they already were.
100%. And I remember during some of the, post-show press and things like that, we obviously had the industry and stakeholders and people came together to really kind of give feedback. And I'll get chills now, but I really did not understand until that moment how important this show is to some businesses. And some people do, I heard numbers as high as 60% of their annual sales.
Right.
They order and transactions occur here. 60% of their annual sales happen at some point during this show. And so to lose 60% of your revenue would have been absolutely devastating. And they couldn't have been more grateful. And sure, were the numbers off a little bit that year? Sure. People had some things to deal with, but the hotels were open, the restaurants were open, the sand was off the beach. I still stand behind it, that I think it was a wonderful thing, but now I know why you left to go to South Carolina. I mean, just saying, way to go. Not support, no.
But the importance of the show, the other in 2020.
Yeah, let's go into that. Yeah.
This was the first outdoor event that happened which was after the lockdown in 2020, where it was permitted to gather together with controls. It was an open air event. The tents were basically open. They had a higher micron filters. The restrictions were really, really hard.
They were. I exhibited that year. And it was tough.
Yeah. But even like the restriction on the filters that they required to have on the AC units for the tents, well, they've been sending us to Publix since this happened, and they don't have the micron filters they were requiring for our tents. And there was no outbreak. There was no. It was a successful model that allowed other events to continue after.
And I will tell you, for example, one of the things that I think stuck was there was a restriction on giveaways. So, for example, you couldn't. The point was to try to limit the amount that humans were contacting. Well, you know what? You just saved me thousands of dollars, because once you can do a successful show and you don't have to, and I'm sorry, this is a public service announcement. Sorry for all those companies that make those things, but you can have a successful show without having tables of pens, cups, and all those things, because in the end, what I saw, the people that were here and the people that came were just so thrilled to be able to still have this moment and still be able, and then all the international people, some of them weren't able to travel, some of them were not, and we understand that, but there were an awful lot that took the chance to come to and to see the United States functioning, because if you just looked on the news, we were all shut down, that's it, no schools, nothing, and instead it was like, not this industry.
Yep. Now, I will say that that's one point where our legislative activity was really good. We immediately were identified as an essential business.
100%. I have the letter.
And we were.
And talk to me about that. Why? Let's get give me an example. I can give you from my company's perspective why we were considered an essential service, but tell me why the marine industry was able to do that.
The marine industry as a whole was considered essential.
Right.
Because there are shipyards that maintain fire boats and the Navy and the Coast Guard, those all have to operate. Well, but also our vessels, the vessels that are our size, can't be unattended and they have to be maintained. And what happens if there's nobody there to watch them or to make sure that there's power to them?
Sure.
And all those things, they can't go.
Then they can become navigational hazards.
And it turned out to be a good way for people to be able to get out with their families without mingling with other people. And it started we had a presidential order from the Republican side. And when they changed leadership, the order was continued. And so through the whole thing,
In the state of Florida.
federally.
Oh, federal. Wow.
It was federal, and it specifically included yachts, and we were able to get foreign crew, which they weren't allowed to fly.
Right.
We were able to get essential foreign crew. Were able to get exemptions to fly so that they could come back to be on the boat, since the boat had gotten stuck here.
So let's talk also a little bit more about the foreign crew. So Friday, you hosted a panel that had U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. You had Department of Agriculture. Talk to me about that. And by the way, I thought that was one of the most successful panels. I can remember, and you're going to get into why you had the panel, but I can remember years back, you would have a panel and you'd get one, maybe two people in uniform, and they were kind of like, oh, we feel really awkward. Oh my God, the crowd's gonna come out. And this time you had so many people at the tables. I think they were almost sitting like on the ends because the panel was so big. So tell me about that and why were those agencies there?
And we've done it for several years, and the word's getting out, and I get more and more people that have questions. And I mean, we had the port director from Port Everglades, the customs port director, attended. We had the commander from Waterways, which handles prevention, which is at port state inspections when foreign flag vessels need to have a port state inspection when they come in, and I think it's every 3 years.
Okay.
And they use it this time of year. They use it because they're all confined and they don't have plans to go anywhere. Before the show starts, a lot of them come and do their port state inspections while they're done.
Well, that's awful convenient.
Well, it gets, and it's.
So what kind of questions? So why have these agencies here?
Because everybody has a question, and the guy down the street tells them the answer.
Right.
And I discover if you put a couple of uniforms to give them the right answer,
They're the authority.
then they understand why the rule is, because they all think a rule is, if it doesn't,
It's an impediment. Yeah.
they think they just made this rule just because. I mean, one of our biggest issues right now is because we had ag
Department of Agriculture there.
Department
Yep.
of Agriculture, is that there's like swine flu. It's like the beef problem that they had out.
Remember that?
They have that in some of the islands in the Caribbean. So the USDA is very concerned about it moving into the United States. And they got to the Caribbean and they realized there were an awful lot of yachts that were headed in this direction. And regulated garbage, the rule's been in place for a long time, but when you travel international, you have to correctly dispose of, just like if you're on a plane and they ask you if you have an apple and they take it away from you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, boats carry more than one apple. And some people don't realize that that's a rule, and they're trying to get the message out and try to figure out how to make it easier for them to comply with the rules. And the best way to do that is to tell people what the rules are and why you do the rules. So that's why DC Agriculture and CBP flew in for that. They flew in specifically for that.
But how great is that? First off, give yourself credit for that these agencies, because you've worked really hard to have these relationships. And I know you have legislative representation, but still, it's a passion of yours. You've worked so hard to keep that they're willing to spend money to come down, because they know that facilitating these discussions will help our industry, but also help them. And that's a really big accomplishment. You should be proud of that.
Thank you. And back to the days when there were 3 guys,
Yeah.
we were having trouble with the foreign crew not getting the right visas, because if you get a commercial visa, a C1D, you're only allowed in the country 29 days. Well, if you come into this country and go to the boatyard, we don't want you to have to leave because
See you later. Right.
Your crew can't stay. So we started an education policy about the correct visa for yacht crew, which is a B1. And it's been an ongoing education process. And that's really where the involvement with the agencies started. And we've continued it. The Coast Guard has many different rules that are a little different than maybe your foreign rules, so that's always useful. And they've embraced it. I will say that both agencies are very willing to do outreach. I tell them we're coming, and they say where and when.
But I think that's also good for the industry as a whole, because if we ever do come across, and it will be there. There will be some regulation that has an unintended consequence for our industry. There will be some sort of new rule that comes out that has an unintended consequence. You already have that relationship, so we can seek clarification. We can try to get the right answers. We have a proven track record of being an industry that wants to abide the regulations. We just need help. And and I think that that's important, because we're not just trying to dodge what the regulations are. We're just trying to, be that conduit to help get people the right information.
This is a funny story. We had a small group, because it was during 2020 show. We had a small group, and it was mostly attorneys and yacht management companies, not the general public, that were in the round table. And one of the better known yacht attorneys said they changed the FAM, and it's much clearer about what the B1 is used for. And I said, you're welcome. And he said, well, what did you do? And I was like, we're in DC 2 or 3 times a year talking to the heads of these departments to change the FAM or to clarify things. I was like, oh, well, it's much better now.
Yeah.
The magic fairy fixed it.
That's what I was just going to say. A lot of people take that for granted. And obviously, I had the pleasure of speaking with Duncan earlier, and we talked about the value of having representation, that so many people give lobbying a bad name because they think you have to be a big giant corporation or it's just self-interest. No, you need to keep those relationships. So as an industry, there's always going to be a challenge. There's always going to be something, and to be able to have change, or to modify that regulation, or to modify, what's it called? The FAM? FAM.
Fields Area Manual.
Okay, Field Annual, that's right. And that's essentially what they use as a guide on how to, but in order to do that, you're right, that doesn't just magically happen, and people don't go, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. You have to build that reputation of being an authority on a subject, and also that we're willing to comply. So that's important.
And I've done a few trips to DC with you. You know how some of it we won't talk about.
No, we can. This makes it a podcast. Maybe people will find it interesting. I'm okay with it.
We'll skip the part about swimming in the Potomac.
Yeah.
But
I did not catch tetanus, by the way, so that's a shout out to the Potomac. So.
But putting the human face in front, in front of not, and our lobbyist of an issue. Our lobbyist does a terrific job in all levels. We have a state, a local, and a federal lobbyist, and all of them are superior at their job. But
you still need the industry.
You still need the guy that this is how it impacts my business. If you do this, this is what's going to happen. They're not going to vote for you if you do this.
Right. So I've definitely improved. I'm not going to go swimming in the Potomac, and I don't get hyper if we miss a plane. That's another story. So I've been invited to go in June, and I've accepted, and I'm really looking forward to it. But let's talk about what the agenda is for that trip.
It's Florida based. We're trying to get what's happening at the federal level is there's effort to make the blue economy nationally managed kind of under NOAA kind of thing where there are areas and they encourage innovation that is dedicated to making the better ocean, better water quality, better marine experience, protect your reefs,
Sure.
all the good things to keep our environment. Because if we don't keep the boating environment pleasant,
No, I agree.
we're not going to
100%.
sell boats. And so we're trying. The urge is like Boston area already has a blue economy cluster. Seattle has a blue economy cluster. California has a blue economy cluster. And we need to bring Florida into line so they're ready when they start weaving these clusters together that we're one of those. And we have a marine research hub, which is dedicated to facilitating collaboration and helping to find the commercial path for an innovation. We discovered that one college had discovered a deep sea sponge that was impacting pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
And so they did the test, wrote the paper, and put it on the shelf because they didn't have the pharmaceutical technologies, and they went on to do a new test. Well, imagine if the pharmaceutical college and that college were working together so they could hand off their research
Sure.
and share the innovation and take it to the next step.
It seems like I'm so surprised they aren't already doing that. It seems so common sense.
But they live in columns
Yeah.
and they go from grant to find their next project. And a lot of them were meant to be research scientists. They weren't meant to be
They weren't meant to see it necessarily go to fruition or turn into.
Yeah, Gatorade.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're looking to try and figure out how to make that work better.
So who's opposed to this? Anybody?
Nobody's opposed to it, but a lot of people aren't aware of it.
Okay.
At the state level, we passed an ocean economy bill last year, and they're opening an office of ocean economy. FAU, I believe, is taking a lead on it, but they'll still be required to work with all the other state schools, private schools, but schools in the state.
Sure.
And the reason we passed the bill, because we tried for 2 years, is we had Chip LaMarca, who happens to be a Republican, and Kelly Skidmore, who's passionate about it and a Democrat, partnered on the bill. And it was reaching across the aisle. It's a really,
Again, common sense. It's amazing when you can get both sides of the aisle together that stuff gets done.
It was really amazing, and it was in somewhat of a contentious year that we were able to get it done. So we want to do that. We want to get the Florida representatives to make their own Florida coalition to support the blue economy.
Excellent. Okay.
That's our mission.
That's our mission. Okay. And we have meetings for that, and I'm looking forward to being a part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll get flashbacks. It'll be fun.
Oh, good. I enjoy. I'm actually one of those people who really, really does enjoy how our legislature works. So I know this is a terrible question, and I don't care who you're for or who you're not. I know who you're for. But what do we think could there be any kind of fallout for the marine industry post-election?
I think that initially there's always fallout. It doesn't matter who wins, who loses. There's a settling of the. If you notice, our boat show election years are always like
A little off, I know.
Everybody doesn't know what's going to happen. Are the rates going up? Are the rates going down? If
Sure.
so-and-so wins. At the end of the day, honestly, the marine industry, well, I would say a lot of them are Republicans. It's an agnostic world. I mean, it's really,
I agree.
Everybody has their opinion, but at the end of the day, everybody goes boating.
Well, at the end of the day, also, it's the 65th annual boat show. I'm celebrating 75 years. We've had both Democrats and Republicans. I know for me as a political science major and guru, I always like to see what the lame duck session is going to look like. So I was asking Duncan, what's going to get passed? Either you have administrations that shove through everything. So, for example, if a Trump were to win, I can see where a Democrat administration will try to possibly get some of their legislation through that they think may not be able to be successful. And again, you still have a House that's Republican and a Senate that's basically even. So not a whole lot. I do think that my understanding is they're still going to pass the defense bill.
I can't imagine they won't.
I mean, it's been passed every year since time.
Well, and the continuing...
And we need it. And the continuous resolution.
Carrying
I think
on.
it's a matter of, things will get stuck in there. But I think it'll be an active lame duck session. And that's just what they call the remaining time in Congress prior to the new administration taking in, or just the inauguration in and of itself. So I think that's interesting. I always just try to let people know that, some of our greatest and most tremendous successes legislatively have been with members that maybe, had I just completely judged them based on their party affiliation and what I heard about them on the news, you could just absolutely say, and they ended up being some of the greatest supporters of us,
yes.
and greatest advocates. And I will tell you, both sides of the aisle have fought for this industry. People that you may think are just the devil incarnate because they are not your party, I can assure you have fought hard and had to make some tough decisions and go against people that say, why are you helping that rich industry? And it's not, it's about the jobs. And every legislator I believe that I've ever sat with that really wants to pay attention and listen, it doesn't matter their party, they respect the industry. So
yes, like I said, we're relatively agnostic. We put 142,000 jobs in the Tri-County area. That's a lot of people at work.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of people at work, and that's nothing you can. No other.
And our industry pays higher salaries on average than other industries in the state. So
Correct.
So in addition to that, in addition to those jobs, I know we talk about that our employees are able to buy homes and pay property taxes and contribute to the state's economy. So
And there's the ability to even start their own small businesses. Look at that are offering one particular service, like
Sure.
the guy that makes boat blinds to fit the funny shaped windows. I
Sure.
mean, that's it.
Or the mattresses that are like short and wide and a weird shape, but every, cabin needs them.
One of our original members is a mattress company
Yeah.
that made for boat bunks.
See a need, fill a need. I will tell you, the marine industry is so indicative of that, of the exact entrepreneurial. If there is a need, there's fill a need, and they will do a tremendous job. Anything else new for the association coming up or new for Patience? You can hear it here first.
Not much. I don't think. I mean, I think we're on slow and steady. It's
And that's
exciting.
associations, yeah.
It's the association's trying to be a little younger and hipper. We hired a social media person.
Patience. We're on a podcast. Hell, we're trying to be younger and hipper too. How are we doing? Okay.
But
We'll find out.
But that's for us. I mean, we don't do the printed newsletter anymore.
Sure. I remember those though. Yeah. I still have all the board packets, in the binders from back in the day.
Well, all I remember is when I first started, if you went to a meeting, you had to fold the newsletters and put the tab on and put the address on while you were sitting in the meeting so that we could mail them out every month.
Well, trade associations are sometimes so underappreciated, but they are so tremendous. And I will say, if you're not a member and you're listening to this, if somebody says, why should I join the Marine Industries Association? Here's your platform. I'll give my answer. What's your answer?
I think that the industry the association does its best to provide the best way to do business for our businesses. And it's funny, the world is talking about workforce now. Mm-hmm. 1997, there was a Marine Magnet program started in the Broward County school system.
Workforce development.
1997. In 28 years ago, the Plywood Regatta was created.
Oh, yeah.
Where we take those 300 kids from middle school through high school and give them power tools and plywood and have them make boats and learn how it works.
Sure.
And have them mentored by industry people.
Sure.
And those things it's now evolved, and we have an apprentice program where there's a yacht service technician apprentice program, which is a 2-year program. And just this year, the boating license the license plate for Florida is available. It's called Boating Capital of the World. The funds go to Captain Sandy's charity, and it puts marine curriculum in all our school, made available for all our schools in the state.
Well, then definitely. And I would also add to that similar, that legislatively, when you need a voice, whether it's in Tallahassee or you need a voice in Washington, that the association is constantly paying attention to the little regulations that would absolutely 100% impact your business and are doing something about it. And so for the $500, it's $500 still?
$500.
And for $3,000, you can become an anchor member, and I highly recommend that so that you're in the know. But it's the best investment you'll make as a small business to join your local trade association. If you're not from Florida, join your local trade association. I assure you they need the help. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for all that you guys do for the wonderful Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show. And I look forward to another year and looking forward to January.
But before I leave, I have to say that if it weren't for Ward's grandfather, we wouldn't have a trade association because he was one of the founding fathers.
And I think how many members were there? I think there was about 100 and maybe not that many.
52 the first year, and then they got up to 100 the second year.
But my understanding, and it could be, my grandfather's tales, but I believe him because he's my grandfather. Yeah. But
we have his records.
Yes, we do. But it was he always told me the reason that all the businesses got together was also to convince the city to be able to put dock pedestals at the docks to get 15 amp service so the boats would stay. And how ironic are we sitting at Bahia Mar, 15 amp service? My goodness, you couldn't even, I don't think 2 hair dryers, you could turn on maybe 3. But you certainly wouldn't power a boat these days. And look how fast, and that was since 1961. So that was a long time ago, and thank you for that. I appreciate that. But, that's our industry. We're small businesses, we're family businesses, and I want to see the association go on forever. And so, we need to have that support.
I do think it fills a need.
It does, 100%, and everybody should be a member. So
a big corporation, if it has a problem, it just writes a check and sends somebody away. A 3-man shop has a problem. They come to the association, and the association realizes how big or small of an impact it has and how much energy they can put into helping.
Well, and also when we're talking to legislators and we talk about our member businesses, but yet actually how many total employees that is and what the economic impact is and how many jobs that represents in their district, they pay attention.
Yeah.
So it's definitely key. Thank you again for your time, and thank you for being here and being on the Ward's Way podcast.
It's been my pleasure.
All right. And we didn't even tell any bad stories. So
I'll save those for next
season. Thanks, Patience.
All right.